Mayor Jacob.
I am here.
Committee Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Cavallini.
Here.
Mr. Rodelius.
Here.
Mr. Leonard.
Here.
Mr. DeVini.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Here. Here. Chairwoman Beckdahl. Here. As the minutes of this meeting of the Bedminster Township Planning filed with the Township Clerk, sent to the Board of Courier to all subscribers. Located at the Township Municipal Building, 1 Miller Lane, Bedminster, New Jersey, on January 6, 2000. Please stand for the flag
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic for which
which
it
it stands,
one
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll open it up to the public. If anyone's here that would like to discuss something that's not on the agenda. Anybody online tonight?
No, it is literally just that.
Just done. All right, so then I will close it to the public. And we have some minutes to approve. We'll start with November 3rd, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Tim?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I was not eligible for the,
Here for the 3rd. Is that right, Jim? Yeah. All right, minutes are approved. We also have the minutes from November 10th.
I'll make a motion to approve those. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain, I wasn't there. Then,
Yeah.
Mayor is not here. Anyone? Minutes are approved for November 10th. We do have some correspondence postponing 20 Route 206 LLC to February 9th, 2023. And also a letter from the municipal clerk, Robin Ray, informing the board of that the ordinance for 2022-013 was adopted on November 21st at the regular township committee meeting.
Guys.
Good guys, yep. Good job. Okay, we have a resolution for Lang and Fisher. We need a motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
Roll call, Janine.
Aye.
Mr. Cavallini.
Aye.
Mr. Rodelius.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. DeVini.
Aye.
Seeing as I walked in the middle, I don't know what we're voting on, so I'm abstaining.
Okay, very good. Mr. Walter.
I wasn't there.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bush. Ms. Christie. Aye. Chairwoman Beckdahl.
Aye. Okay, resolution is approved. We can go down to what we already discussed, Route 206 LLC, that's February 9th, 2023. So we go right on to the Goldman application.
Good evening.
Yes.
My name again is Bill Robertson. I represent the applicants, Stephen and Connie Goldman. This is the continuation of the hearing that started on November 3rd. As the board may recall, there was testimony that evening from Mr. Goldman, Mr. Goldman's engineer, Steve Parker is here with me tonight, and Mr. Goldman's professional planner, Mr. Hickerson, is also here this evening. Subsequent to the November 3rd hearing, based upon the comments from the board, board professionals and concerns and notified the neighbor's attorney, there were revisions made to the proposed plans that have been provided to the board. Significantly, in those plans, there was the addition of 2 dry wells in the area of the existing drainage conveyance system. Those dry wells have been designed to pick up and accommodate the excess of the existing coverage deficiency. There was 0.9% over the 5% permitted. And these dry wells will account for and take care of that existing runoff condition. Also added to the plans for the additional buffering that was discussed at the last meeting, so it's the location of the buffering, and also the fencing, fence around the courts, which has been added to the plans, as well as the lighting. We believe that the fencing complies with the township ordinance and the lighting complies with all conditions of the conditional use. Those plans have been shared with the attorney for the adjoining neighbor, Mr. Simon. Mr. Simon has seen the plans. I've been in communication with Mr. Simon, and he's been in communication with the board's attorney. Based specifically upon the plans that are presented, I'm advised by Mr. Simon that the adjoining neighbor will be withdrawing the objection to the completion. So, when we concluded at the last meeting, and Mr. Hickerson had just finished with direct examination, and given the fact that Mr. Simon will not be this evening, it might make no sense. I don't know if he has permission from Mr. Parker to testify as to those changes that we discussed in detail.
Very good.
Mr. Parker, you understand yourself?
Yes, I do. Steve Parker, Parker Engineering, Somerville, New Jersey.
Mr. Parker, you previously testified this year in November 3rd, and you sworn that.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Yes.
And as I indicated, based upon the comments that we received from the board, was any revisions to the plans that were
Yes, we did make some changes to the plans, and I will describe what those were, but I want to reiterate that there really are no changes to the tennis court, which is really the subject of the application. No changes to the location, orientation, or the stormwater system for the tennis court. What we've done is we've addressed some of the comments from the board last time and concerns that they had about the existing impervious coverage that's out there on the property. And so just real quick, the plans now include details for the 10-foot chain link fence that's going to surround the tennis court. Also includes a lighting plan, the lights that are proposed to be on the tennis court. Those are all proposed to be in accordance with the township standards. So there's no, I think the lighting is a conditional use, and the intention is to meet all those conditions and comply with what the ordinance requires. So the significant change that we've done was there was a lot of discussion last time about the overage of impervious coverage over what's permitted. 5.9% is what's existing, 5% of course is what's allowed. So we've designed the dry wells, the additional dry wells, these are in addition to the tennis court dry wells, to capture the runoff that's equal to what that overage amount is. It's just under 4,000 square feet of impervious coverage. The dry wells that we've designed are designed to handle the runoff from that flow, and where we placed them is just to the north of the driveway. So the runoff from the driveway that's in front of the house, there's two loops. The loop that's in front of basically the house itself, we're placing two dry wells there that'll capture the runoff as it comes off of the driveway, and then it's part of that existing conveyance system that was already there. We're just kind of placing these into that system itself. So what's going to happen is it's going to capture runoff, So allow it to percolate and infiltrate into the ground. It'll slow the rate of runoff, and then that other system will just continue to work as it does also. So that's really the essence of the significant change that we made to the plan. We, as we discussed there, Mr. Roberts discussed, we've added the plantings that were also discussed last time. Those are shown on the plans. There's a total of 11 trees that are proposed around the court to provide some additional shielding. But I think that's the significant changes that have been completed on the plans.
Excuse me.
Can you just try to talk more into the wireless one? That one picks up very badly, and if you're a little bit closer, it might help.
Mr. Parker, with regard to the dry wells, the addition of dry wells, will that mitigate the existing condition, will actually improve the conditions on the site?
It will. It will. It's going to capture the runoff that is just overland flow runoff before it goes off the sides of the property. So it will definitely improve things and make it better.
There was also a review memo that was submitted by Mr. Ferrero, correct?
Yes, correct.
Have you reviewed that memo?
I have.
Go through that memo and indicate whether you're in agreement with the units that have been provided by Mr. Ferrero.
Yeah, I think we can make it real easy and just say we agree with all the comments that are in the memo. I think the only one that's really is a request for more information is just details about the lighting levels at the edges of the property to ensure that they conform with the township requirements. I can assure you that they do, and they will, and we'll provide the information that's requested. Other than that, I think we're good with everything else in the memo.
I don't have any other questions for Mr. Parker, but I think member of the board.
Parker, can you, I know we don't have a lighted pointer, but can you point out where those two inlets are located?
So if you look at the driveway, it's kind of like a figure 8.
Yep.
And the upper loop, just to the left of that, there's squares. There's
Those two
squares.
so those two squares with the notes to the left are where the two inlets were added.
Correct. That's correct. And the inlets are placed right over the dry wells, so that surface runoff is going to get collected in those inlets and flow down into the dry wells.
So the thought is that there will be no further contribution to the runoff, because I thought you had solved that with respect to the tennis court before. So are these inlets intended to reduce the existing runoff going north?
Yes,
now?
that's exactly correct.
Okay. So in consideration of Mr. Simon's concerns, mitigate those concerns specifically.
Well, yeah, and the board discussed it as well. So yes, that's correct. That's
Okay. Super.
Any other board member? Any questions for Mr. Parker? No? Okay, we'll open it up. Public, I guess there isn't any public? Then we can close it.
Interesting is here. I certainly don't want him to have to go through and restate his planning testimony, but just briefly, based on the changes, I might ask him whether he has an opinion as to whether that augments or enhances his opinion with regard to the requested.
Understand you're still on the road?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Henry Hinterstein, Westfield, New Jersey.
Mr. Kirstein, again, without restating all of your testimony from the prior hearing, you have seen the revised plans that have been submitted, correct?
Correct.
And on the basis of those revised plans, do you have an opinion as to whether they enhance or support any of the comments and things?
Yes, the added buffering and the dry wells that have been added to help mitigate the existing runoff currently that exists out there now, I definitely think enhances my previous testimony. And I think now it clearly shows that we're creating a benefit to the surrounding neighbors by reducing that runoff and also adding that additional buffering. Now that I think the adjacent property owners are going to reap a benefit from the enhancements that we added to the project.
I have no other questions.
I do have a question. Can you walk us through the additional buffer that
Sure.
you put in?
The buffer is a mix of evergreen conifers, both we just make sure Colorado and Norway spruce, and the reason for those plants, again, the idea is to help provide something that would be more evergreen. A lot of the material out there is a mix of evergreen and deciduous material, but we're trying to create a buffer that's a little bit more solid throughout the entire year. The spruce is going to be the best tree to do that, especially when it comes to the deer resistance and the deer browsing. And then what we did is we also tried to supplement some native eastern redbuds. It's for some native material and also to enhance the just the aesthetics of the area. Those trees will flower quite nicely in the spring. Again, just providing an aesthetic enhancement to the surrounding area.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board? Okay, and we'll open it up. Public, no public. All going home. Okay. Does anybody have anything else to say?
No, just one quick question. So
Yeah,
the requested variance is still 7.53?
That's correct. That's the requested variance. Yes, that's the lot coverage variance.
And no further, I guess, position with regard to whittling down or removing some of the figure 8 existing pavement?
No, the applicant reviewed that with Mr. Parker, and in our opinion, the better way to address that situation is with the dry wells as opposed to removing what has been the existing driveway configuration, the reasons why it exists, and there's benefit to the property owner, and we can accomplish the same result by accommodating that 4,000 square feet lot coverage with the addition. So that's a better way to address the situation.
Well, I guess that all depends. If the situation is that the lot coverage is related to a drainage concern, or is the lot coverage related to an aesthetic for the R10 zone, perhaps my question is really directed to Frank concerning lot coverage in the R10. What was the intent?
What's the magic to that?
Yeah.
I think Tom told me.
That's before my time. It could be Paul, because he goes back, you know. Was he here before, Frank?
We ought to let him try first. No, Frank was here before me. For the record. I was here when I got into this work. When the standards for the R10 district were fashioned, there was an objective of ensuring that the environmental integrity that we were trying to protect would be preserved to the extent possible. Now, when you say to me, well, how is 5% the magic number? It's not the magic number. It's a very low intensity extent of coverage in a very environmentally constrained landscape. But because it has been the law of the land, we've attempted to try to either respond to that law or ameliorate the impacts of not responding to that law by meeting it. And I think we've talked a lot of times about the kinds of drainage improvement, probably one of the biggest things that we look at, capturing and keeping the extra stormwater on site and managing the stormwater runoff from the site better than it's been managed in the past, for the types of reasons that we've been willing to go beyond the coverage limits.
So I come back. Is it an environmental element? Is it a drainage element? Is it an aesthetic regarding mansions or anything else that the planning board was considering when it?
You got me thinking of that commercial where they went two mints in one. You know, it's all those things. Really. Okay. It's exactly. The aesthetic is a nice byproduct of caring that much about the environment and protecting the farmland and landscape, but it all works together. And in the long run, what we see today is largely a product of having had that kind of attention to those policies. Frank, wouldn't you agree, though, that the major point is to limit, is to limit the development beyond the natural state of the land?
But to the extent that you can do a lot to change the natural state, besides covering it with buildings or purposes, it makes that distinction between what's natural or naturally able to absorb stormwater and what's not going to do that. And the very low intensity of that permitted development is in part because of the character of the wetlands and the floodplains. Yeah, it's all documented in the master plan 20 years ago. But it's not as though these things were just, we didn't make this stuff up. We even graduated the type of response, like lot size, to things like water supply availability, features that were really meaningful in terms of what you're going to protect for you.
But when we look at lot coverage, if this was, if this driveway was impervious pavement, you would still consider it lot.
I mean, if it was gravel, it could be fair.
Yeah, or, I'm sorry,
It is
pavement.
Right, I think, and I'm gonna do some armchair planning and Frankenstein.
I knew he couldn't resist it.
You know, I got it. You know, in the context of this application, dry wells that were put in my opinion, go to the negative criteria on the variance, to prevent a substantial detriment. That's what they do. So the board can make a determination if they see that the dry wells solve a runoff issue and therefore address the negative criteria.
That was so succinct for a planner.
And then
Maybe you should sit over there.
I taught him everything he knows.
You taught him everything he knows?
But I think the other half of what Paul's trying to say is that's.
Oh, thank you for letting us know. And I can do the positive criteria in about 30 seconds too, or you can listen to Frank for the next half hour.
Shots across the bow.
Yeah, apparently.
They don't have a hardship, meaning you've got to be able to find that the purposes of the land use law are advanced, not insignificantly by the proposal. That's the burden that they're trying to demonstrate to you that they can meet. That's short.
Only this, and I certainly don't want to create an issue. I believe that the applicant says that this is very slight. I would like to emphasize that driveway configuration and the lot coverage over it is an existing condition prior to that time. Based on the historical aerial photographs we've seen for that lot, the driveway configuration has existed since the property was built. So it's been there, that's the way it's operated, it's always looked like that. What the applicant is able to do is actually provide benefit by reducing the existing stormwater issue that exists on that site. And we think that provides a benefit to the neighbor, to the community, and also allows the provision of accessory use that is specifically permitted to the specific property. I think for all of those reasons, the benefits to outweigh the detriments. There are, with the addition of seepage that's the dry wells, there should be no negative impact. So positive those are the respect for the
Motion to approve the variance.
Do you have any conditions that we discussed last time that would operate?
Motion? Any second?
Second.
Roll call.
Before we vote, can I just ask
Yes.
a question to
Sure.
my fellow members? So are we to consider, as long as an applicant were to mitigate, and I know we've done this in the past, as long as they can find a way to mitigate the impacts of additional coverage, that solves the problem of, because again,
Rich, if I could just weigh in on that, because
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say to Frank.
yeah.
I can't help
Is
it.
that what Frank meant to say?
If you look at the positive criteria, there has to be something better about this development. One of them has to be better than a complying application. Now, if this house were built on the front setback, had a wider driveway right to it, everything was cleared out, has courtyard behind it, everything was right in one blob in the front, you might be able to comply with lot coverage. But then you would have a much more visible development from the road. It doesn't spread it out, doesn't do all those other things, which are benefits to this layout and plan.
But I'm thinking more broad.
Well,
Let's say we had
you're
a
right,
pro-
but
let's say we had a
you can't-
project.
you can't-
proposal.
What you're talking about, again, is the negative thing. How you keep it from having a substantial detriment. And keep from the substantial detriment. If you deal with stormwater. From the positive criteria, you have to show that you're providing a benefit, or there's some kind of hardship. In this case, they're talking about the C2 where the planning benefits outweigh the detriments. In this case, I think arguably, the house is further back than it could be. That results in a lot of extra lot coverage because
Maybe it does boil down to Larry's point about the aesthetic, but again, in my head, I'm thinking if this had been something more in town, and somebody wanted to add more and more parking, we had a couple of applications over the years that we voted on for an increased parking, et cetera. They somehow exceeded the lot coverage limitations, and they showed us how they were going to mitigate it and how critical it was to their viability of their office building or what have you. But it begins to create this more urban landscape, which is, I think, what we're trying to avoid as a board, as a township, and so forth, by just allowing people to increase the extent of the development, the intensity of the development, and all the things that go along with adding more parking and so forth. And again, maybe parking is a different issue.
that's why you have to look at the positive criteria.
Isn't it just the individual lot, I mean, or?
And every
everyone is
application, every
different.
property stands on its own.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes we'll say yes, and sometimes we'll say no, I mean, it just depends.
And we
on
have.
what each- Yeah, we have.
All right, but I just don't want to walk away from here with the idea, well, they've mitigated the issue of lot coverage, so, make
It's all
it good.
okay.
It would be an entirely different analysis if they were doing like 7% lot coverage in one giant building on the road. Right? Right? It's a whole different animal. So I'm not sure we can do apples to apples.
One
Well,
of the,
Right, for what you're
And it's not
talking
even apples to apples, I'm just saying generally,
Apples to,
yeah, generally if you, in and of itself, mitigating the impact of lot coverage and runoff.
The master plan seeks to maximize the impact of state-type development for the benefit of the environment. This is a typical feature in that estate-type development. So the thing you're going to find is that positive criteria is served because it makes it more like the neighborhood we're trying to allow for a small amount of coverage. You're going to say it belongs on that lot because of the type of development that's here, and the extraneous circumstances of pre-placement of everything else is the reason we end up in the place we end up. But that's an assessment that you make uniquely on this property. The next one comes in, it's an entirely different assessment of all those circumstances. Everybody gets the feeling that we're going to start letting this happen all the time. There's no policy you're developing here. We don't make policy here. We try to implement it or we correct it.
And we're not setting precedent.
Right, thank you.
That's what I was gonna say, before anybody else sort of,
Slow your
said it
thunder.
a different way. Is, that's why we have discretion. You know, you have discretion, you don't have to grant the variance. But if you start drawing lines, white lines, as to something that's other than what's in, the master plan or the zoning ordinance, and you're creating other rules. And I think that's a different way of saying what everybody else is.
Okay. Appreciate the
Great discussion to have.
dialogue. Thank
Oh,
you.
we look forward to those questions, really.
I'm sure you do.
Every time.
I'm sure you do.
Okay, I think we have, I think you're ready for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Travelini?
Aye.
Mr. Amelia?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Devine?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
First,
Aye.
Ms. Christie?
Aye.
Chairwoman Bethel?
Aye.
Aye,
Well, I think
The
that we
ayes have
came
it.
up with, that just because we do here doesn't mean we have to do someplace else. That changed my vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you worked it out with the neighbor.
That makes
Yeah.
total,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Board members, anybody have anything they'd like to talk about?
So I just want to follow up on, after this hearing, I think it was a couple months ago, and I forget if it was Stephen or Tim raised the issue of when do we master plan, right? When can we make another look at it, amend it? And, I think some of the questions that we just heard during this reflect that, right? Is it, right, and I wasn't here for the Fahey one, but I looked, right, that was approved with, what was it, 6 point something lot coverage. We just approved this one at 7% lot coverage. It's certainly not creating policy, but offline I had a discussion with a board member who reflected that in the R10 you already have these setbacks. So much of the lot coverage is already being subsumed by a driveway to get from the road to the setback. So you're already starting with X hundred, X thousand square feet being sucked up because there's the R10 and you gotta be all the way back there. So it was a great point, Anna. And I just went, we always have the ability to tweak the master plan, and I just put it out that, something to consider. Another issue is just to let you know that the ordinance that was adopted, the Township Committee, and the work that started here at the Planning Board lives on. Since the adoption of the ordinance, number of conversations with the property owners, with the county, with the state, different divisions of the state, AT&T, and there are meetings going on that hopefully results in the redevelopment in a positive fashion of the AT&T site. So just let me know that it's not just we adopted an ordinance, we revised the master plan, and thank you. We have a piece of paper, we're going to put it on a shelf and let it collect dust. Things are moving.
Good to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, and everyone have a great Thanksgiving.
Yep.
I have one other thing I wanted, if anybody wanted to go visit
Yeah, I would too. Yep, okay.
I'm in.
They have to give me some times that are best, maybe in the morning, first thing in the morning, best. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I didn't hear that. I can't hear that.
I'm sorry, Lou. Inviting members to be able to go look at the delete building now that it's finished.
Yeah.
You still have to be under that rule.
I'll pick you up and drive you, Lou.
Okay, so we'll have to
At the same
pick
time, or
a couple of
a
days.
board meeting at the site inspection, which we could do the minutes.
48 hours.
40 hours, I think it's
Okay.
2 trips, 4 minutes.
Okay, well, then we'll do it that way. I see that, you know, we have one in the morning, definitely first thing in the morning, like at 8:30 maybe. Yeah. What's that mean?
Early.
Earlier?
Earlier.
I don't get up that early, Rich. I'm retired.
I'm on the second shift.
And someday you'll be there.
I don't work on a farm.
All right, so, and what day, is a particular day better?
Monday.
Monday would be good. Would not be good, I would think not, okay. So maybe up
Wednesday
front,
probably be, Wednesday or Thursday probably better for me.
all right.
Wednesday or Thursday is good for me.
All right, so we have to limit it to 4, so we'll have to try to get some kind of a schedule here together. Susan Powers is the person who's marketing it, and she'd be happy to show it several times, so that's okay. We'll make up some kind of schedule for that. They do have some rentals already. They're ready to go. Paul, Frank, are you interested in getting it started?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, they don't have to be counted in. Yeah, Paul?
Let
You've
me
been
know when
in-
you're gonna do it. If I can get there, I'll get there.
Okay, I know you're here Thursday, so if
But
we
do
can make it
alternates
Thursday.
count as 4? All right.
11,
Okay, okay.
So we'll just do shifts. We'll
We'll do shifts,
yeah.
yeah, we'll find some shifts, and I'll get a couple of dates from Susan, and we'll make it.
You could even do it the same day if you just
Yeah, right. I
don't
know.
show up.
Right, yeah, okay. Well,
Every good thought on early start, clear number at 5% is actually quite appropriate. It's low. You also have frequency. How and for which just 3%.
Oh,
3%.
can't do.
And no cutting,
That's
why you
down
invite-
south.
Why
and
you have the
no cutting of trees at all, except that the employees, no disturbance of the tree.
And a minimum lot size of 88 acres.
And a minimum
right?
lot size of 88 acres on wooded tract, and 25 acres on woodland, on farmland. I'm not saying you would follow that, I'm just saying. You regulate clearing area, and have done the things you do is actually encourage what Bedminster has encouraged. Might be better than. Because of the way you do it. So, yeah, some degree of flexibility within the tank, within how you do something. Don't have any reason. You have to be a perfect one. Things you do actually dealing with how any variance different actually exercise of discretion. Say yes. You know, something like that. I think perfect. That's how good.
Need the mic on.
Recommend something to
Would
the
that
township.
permit us to do, because we talked about, correcting wrongs, so to speak, with respect to the zone. So if we know something.
No, the zone map is a different animal. The zone map is it's generally speaking, I like it. It's perfectly consistent with the master plan, future land use map. That consistency is what gives it reasonableness on the court decisions, but it can be deviated to prove by the talking about it. But so when you deal with the zone areas, you should be amending the master plan, future land use element, future land use map, which looks a lot like the zoning map, but it's not the ordinance. As a board's future land use map. The governing body adopts zone map by ordinance. And once it's in an ordinance, even if mistaken, that is the zone map. So the lines on that map are the line. Sometimes it's the way to correct it. If it was a mistake in the map itself, maybe it can get corrected. But if it's inconsistent with the master plan, the best way to change that is to change the master plan first, and then do the ordinance. Okay? So, he's thinking of, I think you're thinking about like the Shell station. That is
No,
not
I'm
a mistake.
thinking about my selfish project that has a,
Oh,
that has a bad zone in the middle of my track.
Thinking about where the zoning runs.
I'm being very selfish. Those types of things, there ought to be a mechanism to fix. That's all I'm saying.
So
You have to send him a legal.
yeah, I will
now.
But no, I'm not gonna help him with that. But it's you can work with Frank. You really want to change standards in a district. It gets pretty complicated because you have to think about what about every applicant. When changing an ordinance, you're thinking about every problem. You change a variance, you deal with variance. You really are dealing with just that property. Just because you grant it for one doesn't mean you're granting it for another. I know that sounds hard. It sounds like they're cut but each case is on its own track. So that's okay. That's right. Discretion is in your hands. That's why we say you get the vote. Are we having a meeting yet?
That's a good question.
Yeah, no.
No application.
For us to send a note to code compliance, construction code officials regarding, I know there was an issue with a leak in the tin roofs.
That's all done.
The metal roofs, they've been undone, they're metal now again. And they were just waiting for the material. There were tarps there. And I mentioned to you a couple weeks ago that, we specifically restricted up and down lighting on that one project. All the lighting on the front of the lead has that up and down light. So I thought there was a restriction in town from using those. Yeah, building facade lighting is generally not permitted. I will review that with the building officer. We don't have to send a note, you handle it.
Do you want to have the site meeting before or after the notice of violation goes out?
That's a good question.
I'm good either way.
Don't go at night.
On the light,
Somebody
Well, maybe you should let me know how that works out. Have a board driving.
Yeah, I won't be the zoning officer next Thursday.
Okay, all right.
So if there's no meeting until for next week, then Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, guys!
Yep. Another year down. What date do we want? The first Thursday.
The planning board always has to be organized after the committee reorganization, and they set their date. Later than our first meeting, so we don't do this. Maybe the first meeting, the committee has to reorganize.
So we talked about the Tuesday. Oh, okay.
But the Tuesday is not locked in.
Yeah.
It is not, so it could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Right.
So I won't put it on the calendar.
No, I don't know yet.
Not yet. One. We got one. All right, so we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Everybody have a happy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Merry Christmas.